Thanks for letting me drop in on your Zoom today. And Eric, I understand you are the person who's responsible for this. Can you just briefly, what is this group?
So I love Zoom. I love online classes. And when we first realized we were going to go online, I knew that people were really nervous. And so I took to heart what you had said about we have to live true to our motto as brothers and sisters of union. And so I thought, let's gather the sisters of union together for a happy hour. And so this started as a happy hour. And we just checked in with each other, and it has grown into so much more. And so we discuss all sorts of things. It's become a coffee chat. And it happens about every other day, sometimes more often than that. And so it's been a huge success, and it's made us all really comfortable with Zoom because I love Zoom. I think it has so many benefits. So it's been really wonderful. So we have sometimes coffee, sometimes we have red wine. It just depends.
Yeah. So, excellent.
I'm so happy that you've joined us. You're actually the first man in our midst. I think Scott Kirkton has wanted that honor, and we've just had so many women. We haven't really had a space yet, but welcome. Excellent. And thank you so much for coming.
Thanks. Well, hopefully we'll have wisdom and brothers and sisters, all that today in our conversation. So we're not going to, I don't have that much time. I know you're all busy getting ready for the spring term, which starts on Monday. And I just thought it would be really interesting for our students, as well as parents, your colleagues, everyone else, just to hear a little bit about how some union faculty are getting ready for the spring term. And so we could spend all day talking about this. We don't have all day, but maybe just move it around. Who wants to sort of move around, what are you teaching? What's exciting about the term coming up? What have you learned? What are some ways maybe you're going to teach that people might be surprised? And just sort of whoever wants to jump in, just keep it moving. So who wants to start?
So I'll go first, kind of tap into what Erica was talking about. So Jill Murphy, I'm a professor in the English department, and I'm also the director of the Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies program here at Union. I am actually not teaching courses this spring. I feel like I picked the right term to not be teaching, but I had been thinking about ways that I would stay connected before all of this happened. And then Nicole brought up our seniors, and I thought, wow, this would probably be a really good opportunity to tap into what Erica started and maybe try to join GSW majors and minors and students who are taking courses that have GSW credit, and maybe just have like one time where we do a happy hour or chat or something. I think would be fun and interesting, and at least get students connected. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm really grateful for all of my sisters at Union and my brother, president there, and especially the students. I'm really I miss them when I'm not teaching, so it'll be good to be able to connect.
Excellent. That's great. We've heard a lot from seniors. This is a really tough time for them. I mean, we all appreciate that, having gone through college. You sort of had visions of how that was going to end, and this was not it. No. So this would be great to help them. Who else want to share what you're up to?
I'll go next. So I'm teaching one of my all-time favorite and most popular courses. It's my Beyond Bedtime Stories, Rethinking the Fairy Tales of the Brothers Grimm. And so most of our students know the Disney versions. We go into why the Grimm's brothers tales are so grim and how grim they can be. It's a WAC course, and for me, I feel like it's ideally suited for asynchronous and synchronous online learning platforms. I have a lot of background in that, so I think students are going to find that it's far more challenging than even in person. So they've already begun. I've had them in groups. They self-selected their groups. We have some dwarves, elves, and magical beings. We have the big bad wolves, the princesses, and the princes. And I'm trying to use a lot of technology and integrate it seamlessly, so they don't even realize that that's allowing us to create Flipgrid videos, document online or do sort of online documentation, like reading with a pen through perusal. They're also going to be doing blogs. And we are, I think for me, what I'm so excited about is that fairy tales offer such a perfect field of study in times like these, because the fairy tales are often our sort of fundamental building blocks for how we understand the world, how we understand relationships, and who we are. And so in this class, we're going to learn about the history of the genre, but also the psychological dimension. And students are asked to identify early on their favorite fairy tale and to begin to understand why it's their favorite fairy tale. This, for me, is really interesting because I've always said it's Rapunzel, but it wasn't until last week when I was in self-isolation and we had people coming to the house, and needing to wave at me from afar, that I suddenly understood how I actually really thrived in the self-isolated tower on the second floor where I'm at. So I really take that to heart, and I'm asking them to write their own fairy tales. And we use a lot of self-reflective writing prompts. And I want them to address what it means to them to kind of live amidst this pandemic. So I kind of jokingly say we're going to write about love and loss in the time of COVID-19. And I think what's so exciting is that we can do this online. So we didn't have to stop. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do this. And I think at this point, writing, and especially a lot of writing, which is what we do in WAC courses, will give them the opportunity to it addresses that and fulfills that sort of need for stories, need for the reassurance that fairy tales give us, and offers them the ability to tell their own stories. So excellent. I'm excited. So much material. They're going to want me to stop. I know that. So
I have the quick question. Is this the class I walked in on?
It is. Yes, it is. Okay. And we're going to still use those figurines. I have it set up. I figured that out too. So
yeah, I remember that. So that was a cool moment.
I'm excited about this course, and I'm excited about this the format too. So
excellent.
We'll see.
All right, who else wants to jump in? Yeah, Holly.
Hi. So I'm a professor in geology, and I'm teaching a brand new course this term with 4 other faculty members.
Wow.
So we're teaching a gen ed science course called Hot Topics and Cool Science. And our original idea about a year ago was that we were each going to teach 2 weeks on a particular topic. So I'm teaching about climate change, and Brian Cohen's teaching about cancer, and Joanne Kelbeck is teaching about culinary chemistry, and Chad Orzel is teaching about quantum physics, and John Marr is teaching about galaxy masses. So we'd already been meeting as a group over the past year. And then 2 weeks ago, we started meeting on a much more regular basis, virtually, to talk about what we're going to do with the course. And so we're going to employ a lot of different strategies, and different modules are going to have different strategies, both synchronous and asynchronous. So we're doing collaborative reading. It's a lab course, and we actually sent lab materials to some of the students. So we sent them laser pointers and diffraction grading so they can do some of the physics experiments. In the chemistry, culinary chemistry part, students are actually going to make things. They're going to bake, and they're going to cook, and look at chemical reactions. For some of the other modules, we're going to have students look at data and look at virtual experiments. So they're going to get a lot of hands-on experience at their own houses. For my particular module, I guess the thing that I'm most excited about is we're going to talk about climate change as a crisis and the parallels and contrasts with COVID-19 as a crisis, because they're both global issues. They're just happening on different time scales. So I think this is a really opportune time to be able to do that and see the effects of what COVID-19 has had on the environment. For example, if you look at the CO2 emissions over January and February in China, they've dropped a lot. And so it's a really great opportunity for us thinking about climate change as to what our solutions could be in the future. And yes, we've made huge changes, but they haven't necessarily been bad for the environment. So I think that's something that we can actually take advantage of here.
Very cool. Very cool. I love the team teaching of it as well. So Christina, did I see you? Yeah, go ahead.
I think I'm off mute. Hi, Chrisana Scheider. I'm associate professor in philosophy. And this term, I'm teaching 2 sections of Intro to Philosophy, which has 28 students in each class. So that's been my big challenge that I've been obsessing over, how to really connect with students in such a large class online, because it's already a challenge in the classroom, but online it'll be particularly challenging. So I've been thinking about what it is about this new format that I can actually take advantage of. So rather than thinking of it as a handicap, I've been thinking like, what would be really cool about this format? And so it occurred to me that rather than trying to turn the online format into like a virtual classroom, I'm actually going to take advantage of the fact that I think about philosophy all day long in everything that I do. And so I'm essentially, so it's going to be an asynchronous and synchronous class. And for the asynchronous parts where I tape my lectures, I'm taping them while I hang out with my dog and while I bake my macaroons and while I walk around my yard, like Socrates. And when we talk about free will, I'll be doing these things so that they can kind of get this idea that, like, right, philosophy is not this stuffy thing that we do in a classroom and we only think about for like an hour and 45 minutes. It's something that everything we do, there's something relevant. And so things like my dog, I trained my dog to add, but does that mean that he has a mind? Is he actually thinking? So there'll be things like that. They'll be a little goofy, but I'm hoping that the students will enjoy it. And then for the synchronous part, as part of the union challenge that David asked us to do a couple years ago, the thing that I decided to do was my husband and I started doing comedy improv classes to take us out of our comfort zone. It turns out comedy improv is great for classroom activities and things like that, and it translates pretty well to online. So we'll be starting the first week just getting to know each other, so this will hopefully help with the bonding part. We're going to do a couple of comedy improv classes that are philosophy specific, thinking about what is a philosopher, who can do philosophy, hint, it's everybody, and we'll be just having fun with it. So that's some of it.
That's fantastic. Lainey, I saw you up there. Did I see you, Lainey? Thinking about painting, how does that work?
Yeah, so I'm actually really excited about this term. I'm Lainey Nemeth. I teach drawing and painting in the visual arts department. And this term I'm teaching life drawing and a special projects and painting class that I've actually spent the last year and a half developing. And this is the first term I'm teaching it. It's all about studio visits and it's an upper level painting class. So I've shipped all of my students their supplies in both classes. In the painting projects class, everybody has a kind of different set of supplies they use. So each person made a wish list and I was able to just send whatever they needed to their homes. We're talking a lot about how to make a home studio. I had to make a home studio, which I'm going to be zooming from, you could see. So they'll be seeing my paintings in progress, which is weird for me, but it's part of, coming out of our comfort zone. And I think it's important for everybody. And the cool thing about the studio visits class is I get to do a lot more studio visits because we don't have to drive. So it cuts the time down. And I've asked everybody who their favorite living artists are. And so I'm trying to kind of set up some more studio visits with some of their favorite artists that are living, some are in California, some are in New York City. Our second week in life drawing, we're actually going to be going to Assisi in Italy. So we're going to be looking at 2 artists who work in a home studio in Italy, and they'll talk to us about how they make these really beautiful kind of large figure compositions just with their own bodies. So they just use mirrors and then there's also a lot of online programs in different formats so that students can actually see live models on the computer and they can set it up just like a class. So you can have 30 seconds or a minute or 20 minutes of looking at a model posing. And I'm also going to be integrating a lot of film and TV into how you can use gesture drawings when you're watching anything or wherever you are, and working with their family members in their house. So there's a lot of possibilities. In the special projects and painting class, I'm also going to have them all be contacting different artists. So it's going to be a lot of email work, basically what it is to be an artist outside of school. So I'm going to be doing a lot of professional development. They'll all find either an exhibition or a grant opportunity that they want to apply for. And that'll be a part of another project that we do where they'll actually go through the whole process of putting together an application and actually apply for that thing. And then by the end of class, they'll all have a website that they've put together that has their whole portfolio. So at first, it'll just be for our own class, but then ideally, it'll be something they could publish to the world, and they end up with this really beautiful product. So I'm
Very
excited,
cool.
and I think it'll bring people together in a cool way.
Very cool. We only have like 1 or maybe 2 minutes or so, but I wanted to sort of hit 2 things. One, Teresa, I heard you're doing something interesting. I'd love to hear you say a little bit about what you're up to, but also at the end, love to have just 1 or 2 talk about how you can engage with students. Teresa, anything you want to talk about here?
Sure. I'm a professor of economics. I'm teaching environmental economics next term. And so 3 things briefly. First, a couple days ago, I was still kind of feeling pretty overwhelmed about how to make lecture material interactive in the way that it's interactive in class. And I attended some of the information technology services training sessions last week, but I was still feeling a little overwhelmed about how to actually make it work. And one member of the staff at ITS spent 2.5 hours with me over the last 2 days in one-on-one sessions. And now I feel ready, and I'm just so grateful for ITS. So I think that the sort of lecture material can be interactive in the same way that it is in a classroom. One of the things that we do is a project that involves researching economics literature around an issue of environmental degradation that related to economic activity that students choose to study. That culminates in writing an op-ed piece. And if students want to, they can publish them on the library's digital platform. So the librarians who have worked with me on that before have assured me that they are as enthusiastic as ever and able to do that work of helping students to have a public voice by publishing their work through the library. And also, I've always had Mark Mahoney, who's the Pulitzer Prize winning editor of the Daily Gazette's editorial page, come and talk to the class. And he's extremely enthusiastic about doing that again this year. And just finally, I use role immersive games put out by a group called Reacting to the Past. If anyone's interested, they do have a website. One of the games reenacts the 1854 cholera epidemic in London, which was a very important moment in the history of data analysis and how data analysis links to to policy. It's going to be interesting to do that reenactment of that epidemic in the context of this one.
Very cool. Very cool. So just last little spurt around, anything you want to comment on how you can interact with students? How can they contact you, engage? Lori and Cara, or just
Lorraine Morales-Cox from the Visual Arts Department. I'm teaching creative placemaking and the social impact of art. It's been several years in development. It was going to be fully community immersed. But I thought, if there ever was a good time for people to make and connect with their community, it's now. And I'm kind of excited because it's where the students were going to be doing, they're still going to be doing sort of preparations for proposals for Schenectady, but they're actually going to be using their town as a case study. And it's going to be proposing things that are very current and actually going to do it now. So you may have heard of someone like the Rainbow Project, Rainbows Indoors. Some people are doing pop-up poetry. So they're going to not only come up with the idea and do it, because I want something they could be outside, they could do by themselves, or they could have their social distance, The good thing is the weather now is good for me. But they're also going to like see how can this go viral? How do you build community through social media with this? They're going to maybe like interview or talk to people via phone or Skype, what they think about the project. But then the full, they're going to be in smaller teams. I haven't quite figured out if I want to do 2 small teams or a bigger team. But the long-term project will be coming up with almost a how-to manual to do murals in Schenectady. And so they'll have to do a lot of the legwork and research. There's a lot of talk in Schenectady. People mention it to various politicians and business owners about putting up murals. And they're like, how do we do that? So they'll be looking at what kind of history, probably will be in some of that history. They'll have to find out what locations. They're going to be doing phone calls and doing some of that legwork all on their own. It's very much, learn through doing. And then we'll have weekly check-ins. We can do one-on-one. I've given them all my cell phone number. I want them to see me as just another member of the team. But I'm excited because, like I said, I think this is definitely when forming community is important. But when you're talking about creative placemaking, there's also things in terms of planning and strategies in the organization that are sort of like the grunt work, but so critical. And then I can utilize their own talents. We have econ students. We have a student in electrical engineering. So we have a nice range of interdisciplinary students. So I'm excited. I'm nervous, but I'm excited. Wait,
excellent. Excellent. So the last question was just as we wrap up, anybody sort of innovative ways of engaging students?
Well, we have Zoom rooms. I have a hashtag lessons learned from fairy tales across all social network platforms. So hopefully we'll see a lot of that. And
I'm going to have my students work in teams offline together and online. So both are going to be working on projects in groups while we troubleshoot case studies together in the class, but then they're going to be in lab team groups where they're going to have to go out and do experiments, and they're going to have to collate their data and analyze their data together. So it's going to be a combination of backyard science with trying to collate that data information, analyze it, and like Lainey was explaining, taking that data and saying, okay, this is our preliminary results to something bigger. So how, as a scientist, can I think about bringing that forward in the world and writing a grant and thinking about what are the next steps, and trying to give them as much of that real world experience as we can.
Excellent. Great. So just jump in a speed round. Or gets their mute off first, I guess.
I'm going to be, I have an Instagram account for each class, and each student will have a big Instagram share. So that's how students will be able to share works in progress and comment on them.
Excellent.
We're going to try and get the students to, once again, I think either through Instagram or some form of social media in the library, we're going to try and get them to show where they're studying and how they're studying and that sort of thing. And also we're going to try to produce some videos that'll be sort of inspirational instead of just sort of, about the sort of serious aspect of this, what's going on right now, but also just something fun to uplift their spirits.
Excellent.
I'm teaching a seminar in queer theory this term, and I've had students looking forward to this class for the past 3 years, and a lot of them are spring term seniors. And so they've already been brainstorming these kind of brilliant ideas for thinking about community. I mean, in my class, we spend a lot of time talking about the development of queer community in times of extraordinary challenges and in the face of external and internal limitations. And so we're doing a lot of shared screenings of television shows and movies that they want to watch that we'll watch together from different places. My seniors have asked for like an every other week wine night, which I feel like is fine. They're just, I don't know, I miss them, but they're really excited. And they're super ready to be back into something that looks like school for them.
Excellent.
And I believe all of us have been in touch with our students already. Yeah. So we're already in communication, and they're kind of excited to get started, which I was surprised. They want to end their spring break.
Excellent.
Yeah, so one more
you're muted. Wait.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this term I'm teaching Latin American politics, which is a class that is really, I love. I mean, it was one of the classes that I came to Union to teach. So, and I'm originally from Argentina. So this is a class that is really close to me. And it is really exciting. I mean, it's difficult, but the world is changing and the entire region is changing. And so it's such a timely class. And it's going to be exciting for me to work together with the students to track these major transformations. And also there's going to be more of an opportunity for us to be more intentional about technologies. Like, I realize I've been using all different things for years and I love and I keep learning about them. But now I'm forced to be very intentional, and I think this offers us opportunities also for more group work. And so I'm thinking to ask my students to specialize in different countries or in different major issues like, environmental policies. And so I think we will all learn a lot as we embark in the study of Latin America and U.S.-Latin America relations.
Yes, I just want to remind everybody that we also have students that we deal with outside the classroom. And those as well we're communicating with them. For instance, Holly and I are mentors for a cohort of STEM students. Each of us have 10 students. Hers are sophomores, and I work with Sam Emanuel, and we're freshmen. And we're continuing to work with them. So beyond the classroom, the connections that we've had with students, whether they're practicum students, whether we've been mentoring them, they will continue on during the term as well. So I think we should all be very proud that we're working not only within our classes and the students in our classes, but those that we've been working with individually throughout the term.
Excellent. So I'm going to, unfortunately, have to pull to a close. I just want to close by saying thank you for letting me, I feel honored to be the first guy jumping into the Sisters of Union Zoom. I appreciate that. But more seriously, I just want to thank all of you. It's be very easy for folks to just complain, this is different and hard, and I'm just don't want to jump in, but I'm just really impressed, not surprised, but impressed at the way you're all embracing this and doing a lot of really cool things. And I look forward to continuing to check in with you. Maybe I can get invited back if I did okay at some point later in the term to see how it's been going. Thanks a lot, folks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.